Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today, a wonderful guest. His name, Scott Howe, and Scott is the CEO and Executive Director of ARF of the Hamptons. Scott joins us to talk a little bit about the new construction project at the shelter in East Hampton, and then also to talk a little bit about what it's like to adopt your first pet. Let's all welcome Scott Howe. And Scott, thank you so much for joining us. And you really exhibit great leadership qualities. And this is one of the reasons why I have you on the show. And I want to start with a little definition of what ARF of the Hamptons is.
Sure. ARF of the Hamptons is an animal shelter founded in 1974, so almost 50 years ago, at a time when abandoned cats and dogs roam free in the Hamptons. It's much like the conditions we find in the rural South today. There are editorials in the Times from the 1970s with titles that said things to the effect of, "Why do people in the Hamptons abandon their dogs at the end of summer?" There are stories in the Times about packs of dogs roaming East Hampton town around the dump and killing flocks of chickens at local farms. And it was a time when animals weren't spayed and neutered, where the area was very rural and agrarian, and animals were left outside. And summer vacationers, people at their summer homes, would often feed their outdoor stray cats and dogs and then leave them in the fall.
Very sad.
It is sad. I think it's important to remember, though, that the changes that have come about because of organizations like ARF over the last 50 years means that those changes are still possible in the parts of the country where ARF actively rescues abandoned dogs today. So ARF currently helps abandoned and stray animals locally. The biggest need is in our community, cats and feral cats and kittens born every year this time of year in kitten season. And ARF will save and adopt probably 200 to 300 homeless kittens, all from the east end of Long Island this year. Unlike the 70s, there aren't many stray dogs roaming the streets of East Hampton, though occasionally every year, it's sad to say there are some surrendered to ARF through animal control. But because of the great changes in animal welfare here at home, it lets ARF help animals in less fortunate parts of the country. Jean, I think you probably know that animal welfare goes hand in hand with poverty. And so where animals are suffering, all you need to do is look at a map of the United States where people are suffering economically. And that's even true here on Long Island. So those are the places where we find ARF organizations, municipal shelters, and private shelters need ARF's help. And we bring those animals here to ARF and we help them find homes. And our adopters come from Montauk to Manhattan, and as well as New Jersey, Connecticut, and into the Northeast. We have several adopters who will make the trip from Connecticut on the ferry to adopt an ARF cat or dog. And we're happy to do that. So ARF is celebrating almost 50 years, and now we're getting ready to make we've embarked on a construction renovation campaign that's going to prepare ARF for the next 50 years.
Yes, and before you speak about the new facility, I would like to speak a little bit about you, because you have exhibited great leadership at ARF, Scott. And what was your background before coming to ARF? You told me earlier that you've been at the helm of ARF of the Hamptons for the past 6 years. And what were you doing before then? And how did you get involved?
So I immediately before ARF, I was the deputy director for institutional advancement and operations at the Parish Art Museum in Watermill. And my background had been in art and art education. I have a doctorate in art and art education from Columbia's Teachers College. Though my whole career for over 25 years has always been in nonprofits, whether it's been museums or schools. I was originally a Peace Corps volunteer. And I think if the common thread running through all of those jobs is a desire to make our world a better place, for people, for children, for animals. And what I love about my work of art is that it combines all of those things, my love of people and children and animals together, and the wonderful lives that they create together in those families.
And it's nice to see someone so committed to a cause and to making the world a better place. And Scott, you started to speak about the new renovation program or construction program, and I've been reading about it. A lot of people have. And where does that stand now? And you're involved in a capital campaign. You've raised a lot of money. Is there more money to raise, or give us a little background?
So we broke ground on the building project we're calling Forever Home. We broke ground back in August of 2021. That was the culmination of really 10 years of work and planning on our part, to look at our facilities and to ask ourselves questions about what steps we could take today to ensure our future for another 50 years. And two themes emerged. We needed to reinvest in all the areas that housed our animals, especially our kennel buildings, which were the original structures here on our campus, and had not been significantly renovated in over 20 years, and they were now 35 years old. And we needed to look at all of our cattery spaces, again, which were housed in the oldest part of our building, built in 1985. So that campaign developed, and it's about a $13 million construction and renovation project, including the catteries, the kennels, but we're also building an 8,000 square foot year-round training facility. And that's going to be vital for the enrichment and well-being of all the dogs in our care. But it's also an important part of our public programs. It's a place where pet owners can come for training and enrichment for their own dogs. And that's been a successful part of our mission for over 20 years now. So that facility,
it's all very, very exciting. And you've had the fortune of having a few people, or more than a few people in the community, who've really stepped to the plate and donated. And for our viewers, this is such an important thing. If you're in a position where you can make a big donation and create massive change in a community, well, it's a wonderful thing to do. And Scott, I don't know if you want to bring up some of the names of the people and what they've made possible. And if there are people that don't mind you mentioning their name, or they're being named on a building, please, let's talk about this, because when people hear these wonderful stories, it motivates them to do something, especially if they're in a position to do something.
Yeah. So one of our lead gifts for the project, the donor has chosen to remain anonymous, but she's a long-standing friend of ours, and I respect her wishes for anonymity. But she's known to the board and all of us, dear to her. We also had another lead gift from our board chair, Catherine Rayner, and the training facility that I mentioned has been named in honor of her husband, Billy Rayner. Billy was instrumental to our growth and success when he became board chair in the 90s and into the early part of this century. And he led our last two capital campaigns, which preceded the one that I'm doing. So we're honored that with Kathy's gift, and also especially honored that Billy will have a lasting legacy here at ARF, recognizable to the public through the training facility, which would be one of the most public spaces. We've also had another really incredible gift. I think it's important to bring out. It's a planned gift. It's an estate gift from a local gentleman, Richard Wells McCabe, which has become a friend, and I know him as Dick McCabe. And Dick has made an estate gift to ARF, and his estate gift, while not available immediately for the building of the buildings, will be added to our endowment that will help fund and maintain and operate these buildings for generations. And in honor of Mr. McCabe's gift, the renovated lobbies, catteries, and administrative areas will be renamed the Richard Wells McCabe Welcome Center, and that will be our front door. So those are two great examples of people in our community, both on the board and not on the board, stepping forward. They were the catalyst for us being able to break ground last August.
And when you hear the stories about people who do so much for a group like ARF of the Hamptons, well, it motivates others to want to do more. And looking forward, do you have additional monies that need to be raised?
Sure. So we are looking at closing the final $2 million for construction. And we have so we're actively soliciting those gifts with naming opportunities. And then this fall, there'll be a bigger public campaign for ARF, looking at gifts of all levels, of all denominations. And those will go towards the opening and operation and staffing of these new buildings. So that'll all coincide with the grand reopening, so that everyone in the community will have a chance to contribute, will have a chance to have their gift recognized, and to help us reopen for the public.
For our audience, we are speaking with Scott Howe. He is the CEO and Executive Director of ARF of the Hamptons, Animal Rescue Fund of the Hamptons. Now, Scott, I want to switch gears a little. During this renovation project, or this big new building this campaign, you've had to shut your doors on your facility, but you've opened up in your thrift shop. And so if people want to adopt, they can go to the thrift shop in Sagaponack to adopt. Is that correct?
Exactly. So our thrift shop is just off Montauk Highway in Sagaponack. And it is a wonderful place to go for furnishing your home. Unlike what most people may think of a thrift shop, we sell primarily furniture and decor for the homes. And then we also get some amazing donations of clothing, especially designer clothes. It's amazing. And the thrift shop is an important economic engine for ARF. It helps us raise just over $500,000 a year towards our operations. So during renovation, we bring our animals available for adoption to the thrift shop 4 days a week, Thursday through Sunday. And some of my colleagues on staff have set up their offices on the second floor of our thrift shop in Sagaponack. Whereas I'm working, as you can tell behind me, in a construction trailer here on the ARF campus in Wainscott.
Yeah, so in other words, if I wanted to adopt, and I already have in my household 4 rescues, so I'm not so sure I'm going to adopt, but for those people who want to adopt, they can go to the thrift shop.
Exactly.
And can they go online, and do you need people to fill out an application, or what is the procedure?
They can do everything they need to do in advance online, and even fill out the application online for a specific cat or dog. It's all on our website, which is arfhamptons.org.
Now, you have some of the most exciting fundraisers of the summer season. One happens to be at the thrift shop you just mentioned. And then you usually have a big gala in August where you raise visibility and a lot of money. Are you planning to hold those 2 events again this year?
So I'm excited to say that we do plan a reception and party at our thrift shop in Sagaponack Memorial Day weekend in May, and it's a little different this year. Instead, it will be coincide with the launching of an online auction of items for the home, of donated special items that you might normally find in our thrift shop. But they'll come from designers and tastemakers that are true friends to ARF that are going to be making special donations of merchandise to ARF. And so our kickoff party will be a chance for everyone to preview the auction items in person in the shop. And that for us is like a kickoff to the season. And it'll be especially meaningful after these last 2 years of not really being able to celebrate in person. The other benefit, the Bow Wow Meow Ball, is will take place in August this year. We are working on the details as they unfold and as we learn more about the pandemic, and it looks like we are entering in a new phase. While we won't be able to host the event at ARF because of construction, we are looking at off-site venues so that we can have in-person events for people to join us, connected together by a live program. So stay tuned. There are details coming, but I'm excited from the way things look here in March that it looks like we will be able to all be together again this May and again in August.
And that's all very exciting and very important for the future of ARF and for your patrons and your donors, and then people who just want to learn more about the work you do. And moving away from the topic of renovations, construction, fundraising, what advice do you give to people who say who've never adopted a dog or a cat or a rabbit, and they've decided they want to adopt? And can you give us 5 different suggestions, or for people who are completely they're not in the know and they've never had a pet?
Sure. I would first, if you're thinking about a puppy, think twice. Make sure that you have the time commitment for the training and socialization that the puppy will need. Not just housebreaking, but also just the basic training to make that dog a good companion for you. And I think many people, puppies are the most often frequently returned animal to ARF, and I think really any shelter. And it's really that people may have never had a puppy before and realize the challenges of going through the mouthiness, the teething, and the potty training, or they may have forgotten. So there are shelters, many with adult dogs that are 1 year, 2 years old, or even older, that make wonderful pets that may have been returned for no fault of their own, and may make, in a sense, an instant ready-made companion for you to consider. And I also think, kittens, especially if you think that if you've never had a cat, go spend some time in a shelter that has open access where you can sit in a cattery and get to know them. And especially kitten season, it can be really rewarding to raise a kitten who was, probably came into a shelter less than 2 pounds. It was so fragile. And to see them grow up and become a loyal family friend. And that's a real need that shelters across the country have every year and will have this spring starting now. We've had already 11 kittens come to ARF born this spring, and that's just the beginning of the season. And that's true for shelters all across the country.
All very interesting. And of course, for anyone who's thinking of adopting a pet, make sure that you have the time to spend with that pet. If you have a full-time job and you travel all the time, well, this may not be the right time for you to adopt. But if you have a job with flexible hours, or you can be home a little bit of the time, or you have someone who can go out and walk the dog, well, the timing is probably right. And when you bring a pet into your household, you receive in return unconditional love. And of course, that's because you're giving that pet lots of love, attention, and food. And then there is medical care. Doesn't happen very often, but once a year, a dog or a cat needs to go to the vet, and sometimes there are other problems. And well, you've got to just be able to go to the vet and take care of your pet. Speaking of veterinarian services and spay and neuter services, does ARF provide those services to the public when needed?
So we offer free vaccine and wellness clinics for the public, and we schedule those monthly. They're no cost. There are many conditions that we can't treat as a part of those clinics, but we can identify, and we often alert donors to issues they may not be aware of that we find on an exam, and can refer them to veterinarians for follow-up care. So that's an important service we offer. Our other key program that benefits the public, though the public may not immediately be aware of it, is we do free spay-neuter surgery for unowned feral cats in our communities. And that is to help reduce the cat populations and the birth of homeless kittens, and that is a real local problem. So we will do hundreds of free spay-neuter surgeries on community cats, homeless cats, every year.
Wanted to go back to your training facility that's currently being built. You mentioned that it's going to be about 8,500 square feet, which is, to me, a large facility.
Great.
Tell me, will people come from different parts of the country to receive training at the ARF of the Hamptons Training Center, or is this going to be a facility more used by local residents?
Of course, our local community is the first and foremost the audience that we're thinking of. However, our goal for this facility is that there's not just one ARF trainer. Our goal is that we have a roster of trainers, and that we may even bring in trainers from across the country, or even across the world, to offer workshops and special training for the public, and that also might attract people to come for a special weekend workshop with a respected trainer. It also could be a facility for staff and trainers at other shelters in New York, that they could come for their own professional development. We really want it to be a hub of learning and excitement for anyone interested in training, and not just the basics of obedience, but also agility, and also working with dogs with special behavioral needs and problems. And we want to become a center of really excellence and a resource for those animals as well.
Well, I find all of this very, very exciting. And I think our audience also does, because on the eastern end of Long Island, there are so many people who love and cherish their pets, and really across the United States and then the world. And when you hear about a facility like ARF of the Hamptons that's building for the future, is planning 50 years or 100 years out, and is now going to have a fantastic training facility, well, this is all very exciting. It's exciting for East Hampton, for the eastern end of Long Island, for our state, and then our country. All really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
I really, really admire what you're doing. Now, Scott, we have just a few minutes left. And for those of our group watching this and who want to get involved, with ARF of the Hamptons. What is the website? I assume you have some volunteer opportunities. I also
Sure.
assume that if people want to donate, you accept donations large and small. So please
Of course.
give us a little information.
Sure. People can learn more about ARF and learn more about the Forever Home Project, and also see all of our adoptable animals and ways to get involved at ARF Hamptons, HAMPTONS.org. And they can also find my contact information and information about all the things we talked about today, Jean.
Well, thank you very, very much. And Scott, you are a very accessible person, meaning that you're approachable and you're real and you're you're the top of the game. You really run a very professional shelter. Thank you very much, Scott, and good luck with everything that ARF of the Hamptons is involved in. And I know everything is going to be a success. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Scott Howe. He is the CEO and Executive Director of ARF of the Hamptons. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.